Hey everyone!
Hola a todos!
This is Jahaira.
And this is Stephanie, and welcome to Cuento Crimen podcast.
Y aquí on the Cuento Crimen podcast, we are a true crime podcast and we bring a new case every Wednesday.
Cada miércoles.
And these are cases that don't get much media attention, so chances are you haven't heard of some of these cases.
And we cover these cases in Spanglish.
Así que agarra a tu abuelita, tu abuelito, tu mamá, tu papá, a quien tú gustes, and come join us every Wednesday for a new true crime case. So, if you don't know who Silvano Ward Brown is, let us tell you. Hoy vamos a hablar sobre the first serial killer in Panama's history.
Silvano Ward Brown es de Panamá y él mató entre los años 1956 a 1973. This is a time where he went on a killing spree.
And that is a lot of years.
Yeah, a lot of years.
That's more than 10 years. That's crazy. And because of his crimes, he is known as el Estrangulador de Panama, which is kind of reminds me of the Cleveland Strangler.
Yes, yeah, that's another episode that we covered here on Cuento Crimen. But before we dive into his crimes, let's start on page 1. Silvano was born on September 19, 1941 in Puerto Armuelas, Chiriquí province in Panama, and he was born into a family of Afro-Panamanians.
And he had a normal childhood like any other kid. He came from a loving home and things are okay. Like there was nothing really that struck us as a red flag.
Mm-hmm. But things started to change. He started growing up and his attitude became different, and overall he became a different person. Like he wasn't the little boy anymore, you know, like I guess just a whole different character change, right? He stopped focusing on school. Y fue a la primaria up until the 4th grade, so still a kid. So overall he was just not acting as a kid, or we are talking about like in the late 1940s.
Yeah.
When he was a kid.
And honestly, like 4th grade, you're still pretty young when you're in 4th grade. Like a lot of the 4th graders at my campus try to act up. I'm like, stop. But it is usually like when attitudes start like flaring up. Cuando hay cambios, you know, hormones, people are going through it. Mm-hmm. And so for Silvano, what triggered this, or lo que piensan que pudo haber afectado, fue que todo esto pasó cuando su papá dejó a su familia.
And, you know, we've kind of said this in the podcast. Everybody reacts differently to any kind of situation in your life. So, and in this case, it seems like Silvano had a behavioral change, you know, in the same time frame as his parents' separation.
Mm-hmm. And just like this behavior was super problematic. Like it wasn't just like talking back or any of that. It was hardcore stuff.
Yeah, hardcore stuff. He at some point served 2 years in a juvenile prison for an unspecified offense. We couldn't find more information on this, but we do know that he did spend time at such a young age.
Yeah, so like going to juvie and having detention, I feel like it's on 2 different scales. Mm-hmm. And it seemed like his behavior just kept escalating hasta que llegamos al año 1959. Y ahí es cuando él empezó a asesinar a personas. Y su primer asesinato tomó lugar cuando él tenía solo 12 años. And he was looking for a house to break into in San Francisco, Panama. And that's when he came across the house of 18-year-old Paula Caballero.
And so, he broke into Paula's house. Y, you know, he then realized that she was home. And él se le quedó viendo cuando Paula se estaba cambiando. Y luego ella se dio cuenta que ahí estaba alguien y ella se espantó.
He had a knife with him and he began to stab her in the chest. And then he ran away, leaving Paula there to bleed out.
Luckily, authorities were able to connect Silvano to Paola's murder. He was caught and sentenced 2 años en un reclusorio de menores y luego 10 años en Coibas Islands Prison.
Y cuando estaba en prisión, a medical and forensic psychiatrist, José Khaled, dijo que cuando Silvano cumpliera su condena y ya podría salir de allí, que él creía que Silvano iba a matar otra vez.
I think that's such a scary statement for a professional to say that. Like, I believe this person is capable of killing again once they get out. I mean, I think it should be taken serious.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You know, but it is also like opinions. I feel like maybe there should be more medical and forensic psychiatrists, you know, to give in their input.
And that's also what I was like thinking, like, well, what makes him think this? Like, what was his evidence or, you know, supporting details?
Yeah, it's just a scary statement.
Yeah. But anyway, Silvano siguió y cumplió su sentencia. So on December 4th, 1969, he was finally released.
And so, por un tiempo, he, you know, lays low, vive una vida normal, pero, you know, pasan más años and he strikes again, making this his second murder.
On June 7th, 1973, decidió ir con un amigo a una ciudad que se llamaba Colón y salieron, you know, they had a good time. Y después Silvano regresó como a la 1:30 de la mañana y manejaba en la calle Central Avenue. Y como a las 2 de la mañana él va manejando y nota que una mujer va caminando, pero, you know, he just decides to mind his business and keep driving. Pero al poco tiempo, he changed his mind and he goes back to the place where he saw the woman.
Y es cuando se encuentra con una mujer de 22 años con el nombre Dalia Gayan Troya. She was a prostitute, and another name that she went by that happens to be very similar to her, you know, real name. 22-year-old Dalilia Gayan Troya.
But Silvano had erection problems, and Dalila mocked him because she wanted to be done quickly, and that's when he got upset and he asked for his money back because he said he wouldn't pay for only seeing her in underwear.
Y ella le dijo que no le iba a devolver su dinero, y también ella le dio una cachetada.
And this was what made Silvano super upset. And he then proceeded to punch her back, and then that led to him strangling her with his hands and a sweater.
Silvano then cleaned up the blood y puso el cuerpo de Dalilia en su troca, y luego dejó su cuerpo sin ropa en la calle.
He did this so that authorities could take longer in identifying her.
He threw her belongings over a bridge, and later her body was found by a couple.
Y 8 días después, Silvano conoció a 23-year-old Rose Maria Gomez Orlas, and she was a prostitute, and another name of hers was Rosa Maria Gomez.
And the same thing happened again. They went on a walk, and later on he had an erection problem, and because of this, she became his third victim.
Silvano got really upset at her when she started to tease him about, you know, the issues that he was having. And como dijo Stephanie, it was deja vu again.
Mm-hmm. Silvano became really angry. Like, it seems like this is a very sensitive topic for him. So he began punching her and strangling her with his hands and a sash that she was wearing.
Y Silvano hizo lo mismo, dejó su cuerpo tirado sin ropa. So again, authorities could take longer in identifying her. And she was found June 19, 1973.
The National Research Department, then led by Dario Arozmena, quickly connected the two murders because, you know, they had so many similarities, you know?
Yeah, I think it's really clear to see, like, the similarities between these two individuals. Like, you know, they had a similar background. Like, they were both strangled. They had the same body position. They were in similar locations. They were both prostitutes. So there was a lot going on there.
Yeah, like, you know, I'm glad
overlapping, pues.
Yeah, I'm glad that they were able to connect them because, you know, that does make things like move forward in finding who is responsible. Mm-hmm. And then also like trying to stop this person because they've done it, you know,
they
like
keep
they could
going.
Do it again. Yeah. 10 días después de haber encontrado el cuerpo de Rose Maria Gomez Orlas, Silvano fue detenido in connection to her murder and also Delilia's. And when they, you know, approached him and started investigating him, encontraron the sash that Rose was wearing, and they found it in the backseat of his car.
And once all of this happens, he then finally confesses, and he confesses in details.
In a psychiatric examination, Silvano was described and determined to be someone who was cold and someone who was very particular and someone who was a calculated individual who has a high IQ. He was also diagnosed as a moral psychopath, mixed with a preserved sexual psyche and whose condition led him to act out his frustration in a violent and murderous way.
So ultimately, Silvano was sentenced to 20 years imprisonment in Model jail, and also he was sent to rehabilitation psychiatric.
And I'm curious to see how y'all feel about this next thing that we're going to say. You can let us know on our social media. You can send us a message because I'm really curious about what people think. Silvano was released after serving his sentence on June 24th, 1993. And he was 52 years old at the time.
And he's only 52 years old. Like, I don't know. I feel like he is still capable of doing it again. Like, 52 años, honestly, is not that old. Like, I don't know. It's crazy, no? Like, él mató 3 personas and now he's out and just is supposed to come back into society and live life. I don't know.
He now lives in the capital of Panama. And he is around 80 years old and works as a security guard. And, he lives with relatives in his country's capital.
That's crazy, huh?
Somewhere out there in a big city.
It's like, haces todo esto, and then now you're just back living life como si nada había pasado. But I mean, as long as, I don't know. Do we trust that people change, or do we, I don't know. It's hard.
It's a tough discussion, I think. But yeah, we want to know what y'all think.
Let's talk about it. Like, I don't know. People like Silvano, should he have gotten a second chance to come back into society? Or is it just too soon, too much, you know? Let us know on the Instagram post, which would be up on Wednesday after this episode. And yeah, let's talk about it. A ver qué piensan ustedes, because I don't know. I'm a little iffy on it.
And that's all that we have for this week's episode. Thank you so much for coming by and listening to us during your week. We appreciate you all. And yeah, thank you for listening, and we'll see you all next week.